In this problem, we are given the value of sine theta, which is 3 over 5, with the condition that theta lies in the first quadrant. We need to obtain the value of the remaining 5 trig functions. So let's begin. So here we are given the value of sine theta. The sine theta is 3 over 5 and it is a positive value. So let's understand why it's positive. Well, if we consider our Cartesian plane, it can be divided into 4 equal parts. So this is going to be the first quadrant, followed by the second quadrant, then we have the third quadrant and the fourth quadrant. Now the quadrants are chosen in such a manner that means our angle theta is going to lie between 0 and pi over 2 radians. That's the first quadrant. In the second quadrant, theta will lie between pi over 2 and pi radians. In the third quadrant, our angle is going to be between pi and 3 pi over 2 radians, or which is 270 degrees, and pi corresponds to 180 degrees. And finally, in the fourth quadrant, our theta value is going to lie between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi. Now there's a certain mnemonic to remember. So in the first quadrant, we have A, which means all positive. We'll come back to that in a moment. In the second quadrant, we have S. In the third quadrant, we have T. And in the fourth quadrant, we have C. So A stands for all positive. So that means whichever trigonometric function we choose, be it sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, secant, or cosecant, all of them are going to have a positive value. And clearly in a problem it's given here that we are in the first quadrant, so that means the sine function is going to be positive. Coming to the second quadrant, so here sine is going to be positive, and if sine is positive, then cosecant function is also going to be positive. The 4 remaining trig functions are going to be negative. T means we have tangent function, so that's going to be positive, and tangent means cotangent function, which is the reciprocal of the tangent function, that's also going to be positive. And finally in the fourth quadrant we have C. So C represents the cosine function, so cosine and its reciprocal, which is the secant function. So these 2 trig functions are going to be positive for theta lying between 3 pi over 2 and 2 pi in the fourth quadrant. Everything else is going to be negative. Now coming to our problem, we are provided with the value of sine theta, and immediately we can define the cosecant function. So cosecant of theta, we know that it is the reciprocal of the sine function. So reciprocal of the sine, which is 3 over 5, so that's what's going to give us 5 over 3. Here we have obtained our first trig value. Now we know that we're going to use an identity. So there's a standard identity which is given by cosine squared theta plus sine squared theta. So this is equals to 1. So using this identity, we can find out the value of cosine theta. So cosine theta is simply defined as plus or minus square root of 1 minus sine squared theta. So if we substitute the value of sine theta with 3 over 5, we can obtain the value of cosine theta, which we are going to do right now. We have plus or minus square root of 1 minus 3 over 5 whole square. So this will be equals to plus or minus. So we have 1 minus 9 over 25. So 1 minus 9 over 25, that gives us 16 over 25. Now when we take the square root, it's going to be plus or minus 4 over 5. So this is the value of cosine theta. And since we are getting 2 values, one is positive 4 over 5 and the other is negative 4 over 5. And we are in the first quadrant. In the first quadrant, everything is positive. So that means we will only consider the positive value, which is 4 over 5. Fine. Since we have the value of cosine theta, we can immediately obtain the value of secant theta, because we know that secant theta is the reciprocal of the cosine function. So that's going to be equals to 5 over 4. So this is secant theta. Let's note it down. Now we have to find out the value of the remaining 2 trig functions, which is tangent theta and cotangent theta. We'll start with tangent theta. We know the tangent function is the ratio of our sine function to that of a cosine function. We already have we have the value of sine theta as well as cosine theta. So sine theta is 3 over 5, and that's divided by 4 over 5. So that means we are going to get 3 over 4. This is the value of tangent theta. And since we have the value of tangent theta, we can also find out the value of cotangent theta, which is the reciprocal of a tangent function. So we're going to get 4 over 3. And all the trig functions are going to have positive values because they all lie in the first quadrant. So hence we have successfully obtained the value of sine, cosine, tangent, cotangent, secant, and cosecant.